This is CBN NewsWatch.
So many families have lost everything. Homes are gone, businesses are gone. Roads and infrastructure along the storm's path have been destroyed. This hurricane was an absolute monster, and the damage left in its wake is still yet to be fully understood. Today, the top focus is search and rescue. We prayed that Floridians stayed safe.
And that was Florida Governor Rick Scott speaking the day after a massive Category 4 Hurricane Michael slams into the Florida Panhandle. Welcome to CBN NewsWatch. I'm Heather Sells. Scott called it unimaginable destruction. Floridians and the nation are just beginning to grasp the scope of the damage as more and more images are coming in. Scott says the people of Florida are their focus, and rescue operations actually started last night as soon as first responders could get out. He says there are 3,500 Florida National Guard members with at least 1,000 high water vehicles, 13 helicopters, and 16 boats to help those stranded and in need right now. Churches, of course, are some of the first responders in the hardest hit areas. Pastor Cole Bailey of Lighthouse Church in Panama City Beach says teams from his church began going out yesterday once the winds dropped to check on those who rode out the storm. They also checked for damage to the homes of those who evacuated. Hurricane Michael has basically destroyed Lighthouse Church. It ripped the roof off the main campus church sanctuary, collapsed the walls, and flooded the sanctuary. But Bailey says the church is more concerned about its people right now.
Buildings are very important. Of course, we love to have a place to congregate and worship. But what all of our staff and myself and what we're all doing right now is we've got teams going out. We're checking on everybody's home. We're checking on them because you can rebuild buildings, but we're in this thing to make sure that everybody is taken care of and loved.
Bailey told CBN News that multiple churches outside of the area have reached out to him and will help to coordinate meals for people in Bay County.
I think everyone's still in shock, to be honest. Most people have never lived through anything like this, and with this amount of damage, I think really people, we're used to having air conditioning power and push a button and do whatever you want to do. Most people have never been through anything like this. I don't think a lot of people are coming back right now because there's not much to come back to until the power is restored and the power lines are cleared. And even like right now, I mean, it's probably going to be a 3/4 of a mile walk just for me to try to get to my house to see its condition because the power lines are so down. It's a mess.
And Hurricane Michael, of course, has destroyed other churches. You were just looking at some footage of the damage the storm has inflicted on the Destiny Worship Center in Panama City, which also is going to need to rebuild. And Pastor Buford Lipscomb leads Liberty Network International in nearby Pensacola. The Apostolic Network connects ministers, churches, and ministries across the country and the world. And right now, it's reaching out to hard-hit communities in the Florida Panhandle. Pastor Buford joins us right now via Skype. Thanks so much for joining us.
You, Heather.
Tell us, what are you hearing from churches in the Panhandle? What are some of their main concerns today?
Well, as you just heard from Pastor Bailey, that we're just getting news in. It's devastating across our Panhandle community. A number of churches have lost. We know the church is not a building. The building can be replaced. We're concerned about our people. We here in Pensacola have been impacted by hurricanes, and we believe it's us local people and the body of Christ that can get there before the government does and can make a difference. So we're trying to get people in there urgently in the next day or so before we even get coordinated for, along with larger organizations. We need a lot of prayer today across the Panhandle. There's a lot of people that are hurting and have lost a whole lot, Heather.
Tell me, what is your sense of how many people are actually, did they stay? How many people left? Are there actually more pastors on the ground like Pastor Bailey who are able to assess and reach out to other people today?
There are some. Many did leave. Many did not leave, unfortunately. This was one that they should have left. But let me say also, Heather, this was a unique and historical storm. It didn't just impact our coastal community. It was still a hurricane well inland. So we have a lot of small towns in the Panhandle. Marianna, Florida has been devastated. And a lot of focus and interest is on the coastal, but this one's much larger than a coastal event.
How do you see the next couple of days playing out? Because from what we're hearing, there's so many roads that are impassable. It's even hard to get in right now and assess what's going on.
Yes, and the governor has asked that there not be a lot of people entering, but we have groups going out. We've had experience, unfortunately, with this kind of hurricane event here in our area. So we have a lot of men that are going just to clear roads and clear trees off of houses. People are still trapped in their homes, even today. It's been so devastating. I think it's going to be a few days before the large organizations can get in here. Groups are coming in. The body of Christ is activating, and we're getting calls, and we're kind of acting as a staging area. We're an hour and a half away from Panama City Beach, but we were spared a lot, so we're trying to act as a coordination staging area for a lot of groups and a lot of organizations.
Well, it is beautiful to see the body of Christ come together after something like this. We are praying for you all. Thank you for sharing with us what's going on. Thank you, Heather. And we appreciate it. Well, as Pastor Lipscomb just told us, the need is great for victims of Michael. CBN's Operation Blessing teams are already on the scene in Florida, meeting with pastors and churches as well to coordinate those volunteer efforts.
I'm Tom Wiley with Operation Blessing Disaster Relief. It's now Wednesday night and Hurricane Michael has now passed through the Florida Panhandle area. We sent an advance team here just yesterday, starting in Pensacola, and we've been making our way to Panama City to assess the damage of this hurricane. Operation Blessing Disaster Relief is staging equipment and people and other resources as we look at coming into this area to help the residents affected by this storm. We've been driving down numerous highways today, weaving through downed trees and down power lines and seeing the damage firsthand. This area has been hard hit.
Well, we've noticed a lot of trees down, power lines down, metal flying, truck lifting off the ground. I mean, we just scared to death, man.
Few residents were even looking for their loved ones. They were driving around trying to get in to the areas where their homes were, and it was really difficult. So we're seeing firsthand the impact of this storm. Operation Blessing will continue to work with our ministry partners to get down into this area, to get to the right place, to provide the right amount of assistance for the families and communities affected by this disaster. We really appreciate your prayer support. Financial support is appreciated so we can continue to do our work effectively. And volunteers are definitely going to be needed. This was a Category 4 hurricane. Volunteers will need to come into this area to help residents muck and gut out their homes, clear debris. There'll be a lot of chainsaw work needed. So we appreciate your continued prayer support. If you'd like to learn more about volunteering, please visit Operation Blessing's website at ob.org. God bless you.
CBN News is also on the ground in the hard-hit Florida Gulf region. Our Caitlin Burke talked to rescue crews who were preparing to go help those in need.
They say the biggest danger was the wind. So they're looking for people whose homes were really just demolished, people who didn't evacuate. They said that's their biggest fear, the people who didn't think that this was serious enough to leave. They are the ones that these people will be going in to save.
We take medical doctors with us, we take logs personnel, we take rescue personnel, swift water individuals, and then we have all the assets to encompass it. So we have boats, we got hazmat equipment, we have heavy rigging equipment, anything that we can potentially come across in this type of event, we're prepared for, so that if any victims are trapped, that we can make sure that we get them out and get them to the proper safety and medical attention that they might need.
Caitlin and our CBN News crew will be bringing us reports on the recovery from Florida, so stay with the CBN News channel and cbnnews.com for full coverage of Michael recovery efforts. Coming up tomorrow could be the day Turkey releases American pastor Andrew Brunson. Will the latest developments in Washington make a difference? American pastor Andrew Brunson marked his second year as a prisoner of Turkey this week. And Senator James Lankford once again called on Turkey to release Pastor Brunson. CBN's Jennifer Wishon reports that business leaders and religious freedom advocates are also working for Brunson's release.
During a recent trip to the U.S., Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met with hundreds of investors. His country's economy is failing due in part to U.S. sanctions, and he's appealing to American investors to help Turkey recover. In a letter to President Trump, the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom calls that troubling, given Erdogan's personal and public support for the continued unlawful detainment of American pastor Andrew Brunson.
It's such an unstable country right now that in the way that the human rights violations that are occurring are so troubling, as we're seeing with Andrew Brunson, that we would really caution businesses to be careful about investing in Turkey.
Pastor Brunson has been detained in Turkey for nearly 2 years on bogus charges. During that time, the Turkish lira has lost 40% of its value due to Erdogan's power grab and the diplomatic dispute between the U.S. and Turkey over Brunson. Still, Commissioner Nadine Mayenza says Erdogan is using Brunson as a pawn to play to his Islamist base and distract from the pain Turks are feeling in their pocketbooks.
Their economy is spiraling and their currency has devalued, and there's all sorts of problems in Turkey. So this is a really good distraction for the president to be able to point to this and say, see, look, I'm protecting our country from dangerous terrorists. And we all know Andrew Brunson is not a dangerous terrorist.
You know, here in the U.S., on mainstream news channels, news outlets, we're not hearing about Pastor Brunson on a daily, weekly, even monthly basis. But in Turkey, It's quite different. I mean, it's a huge deal that there's this Christian American man who's been charged with terrorism.
Right, he's been charged with trying to overthrow the government of Turkey, which of course is completely false. And the fact that he's in his home, we're so glad that he's not in prison, but we are concerned for his safety, because if there was, it's not like he's in a secured fortress the way that we feel like he should be. So we actually obviously feel he should be returned immediately to the United States.
There are rumors Turkey may release Brunson around his next hearing on October 12th. A Brunson release would be a tremendous political coup for President Trump, but not nearly as sweet as it would be for his family and the millions of Christians who are praying for him. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Remember the movie Catch Me If You Can? It is the story of Frank Abagnale, and he used to be one of the world's most famous con men. Well, Mark Martin caught up with him and talked about how he now works to prevent the crimes he used to commit.
I'd like to cash this check here, and then I'd like to take you out for a steak dinner.
Leonardo DiCaprio played former con man Frank Abagnale in the 2000 film Catch Me If You Can.
I can't stop. It's my job.
Tom Hanks plays the FBI agent who finally tracked down the 21-year-old Abagnale in France after a 5-year crime spree.
I ran away from home when I was 16, basically because my parents were getting a divorce and a judge in family court was making me choose which parent to live with. So I chose to run away instead.
He admits life on the run was by no means glamorous, regularly crying himself to sleep. CBN News sat down with the now 70-year-old at a Scam Jam event.
I started writing checks to support myself. When money ran out, I kept writing the checks. I impersonated an airline pilot for a couple of years. I worked in a hospital as a doctor for a while. I took the bar in Louisiana and practiced law there for a while. And by the time I was 21, I'd written about $2.5 million worth of bad checks in 26 countries and 50 states.
Nearly 50 years later, part of life involves being the face of AARP's Fraud Watch network. He speaks on avoiding scams and ways to protect families from crimes, including identity theft.
Abagnale has served as AARP's Fraud Watch network ambassador for 4 years now. He shares his criminal past and turnaround with audiences and also talks about potential pitfalls created by criminals in today's high-tech world.
Life on the other side began after the pursuing FBI agent rescued Abagnale from a federal prison in Virginia. The movie character's name is Carl Hanratty. In real life, it was Joseph Shea.
He persuaded the government that he felt that I would be a great asset to the government if they took me out of prison to basically
not only help educate agents to think out of the box and to look at things not as black and white, but also to do undercover work for the Bureau, because I could take on these roles as different people and get enough time doing it to get enough information.
After 6 years, Abagnale was free to leave the FBI. He chose to stay and has worked for the Bureau for more than 40 years. Abagnale credits those close to him for helping him turn his life around.
So it was more about my wife changing my life and my family and the responsibility of family, and then learning the love of country and being surrounded by people who influence you as a young person is what really changed my life.
Today, Abagnale teaches at the FBI Academy, trains agents in the field, and assists agents on cases. He's also an author, public speaker, and consultant. His website describes him as one of the world's most respected authorities on forgery, embezzlement, and secure documents.
Last 20 years all been cyber related, about breaches and cyber crimes and malware, ransomware, and those things.
He says a few years ago, AARP contacted him about sharing ways to protect the elderly from fraud. A survey showed fraud as the #1 concern for the organization's more than 38 million members.
The actual incidence of fraud and ID theft, fraud mostly, it's drastically underreported because someone feels vulnerable and they don't want to admit it. Having people come together makes people realize, I'm not in this alone. And one of the first steps to being able to remedy the situation is to admit that it happened.
Abagnale says people should know that every scam is basically the same.
At some point in that conversation, I'm going to either ask you for money or I'm going to ask you for information, social security number, date of birth, bank account number. Those are the red flags.
He adds each scam is simple to solve by what he calls stop and verify.
So if I call and say I'm the IRS and you owe back taxes and you need to pay immediately right this minute, I just hang up the phone and go to the white pages and look up the IRS, or go to the government pages and look up the IRS, call the IRS that I received this call, this is a person's name, and they're going to tell me that's a scam, ignore the call.
Abagnale says education is the most powerful weapon in fighting crime. And this former con artist has chosen to spend his life on the right side of the law, sharing that knowledge. Mark Martin, CBN News, Virginia Beach.
One disturbing trend we have been hearing about lately is how many young people are leaving the Christian faith. An effort called Dare to Share is working to change that. It is teaching teenagers how to love their faith and easily evangelize. As Dare to Share's founder, Greg Steer, told CBN's Paul Strand, he believes it could ignite an awakening across the nation.
Greg, tell us, what is Dare to Share?
You know, at Dare to Share, we train and equip, mobilize teenagers to share the gospel. And October 13th, we're doing Dare to Share Live, which is one event in 97 cities. So literally, from Fairbanks, Alaska to Puerto Rico, students will be simultaneously motivated, trained, equipped, and turned loose to share the gospel of Christ. They'll have a Dare to Share Live app. So a student in Fairbanks, Alaska can talk to a student in Puerto Rico because they're getting the exact same training at the exact same time. And on that app, you'll be able to see a map of the United States self-populate with all the gospel conversations happening. We just believe it's time for revival. We believe there's a generation of teenagers that want to be about a cause. And the ultimate cause is the gospel of Jesus Christ. So we'll train them, equip them. We'll have Shane and Shane, the skit guys, Zane Black, Flame, the rapper, myself, others. But there'll be live worship bands in every room, live trainers in every room. And we're going to train, equip, and unleash them with the gospel of Jesus Christ to shake this nation with the good news of Jesus.
So what time is this event on October 13th? And where exactly would teens go if they want to get involved with it?
Yeah, it's a 9 a.m. West Coast start and a noon East Coast start. So it's truly live. There's no delay. And if they will go to daretosharelive.org, that's dare, the number 2, daretosharelive.org. They can find out all the information they need about it, and really encourage them to bring their youth groups out, because we're going to be going out to collect canned food for local rescue missions, but also sharing the gospel in the process. So the goal for this is not just a exciting rally call, but a revival. Our hashtag is Rock Your City. So we just believe the cities across the United States, 97, are going to be rocked with the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Encourage everybody to set their alarm for 10:13 a.m. every day and pray for revival on October 13th, that God would bring a sweeping revival.
Is this the first year that you're doing this nationwide simulcast?
We did it last year in 68 sites. We were able to train 10,000 students in a day. And this year we're praying for 25,000 teenagers to be trained, equipped, and mobilized in a single day.
Throughout the day, what is happening? Are kids going out to witness? I mean, is this stuff happening live? And then do you wrap it all up with people sharing what's happened?
Exactly. So in the morning, everybody gets trained and equipped. It's interactive back and forth. Again, there's live trainers in every room. It's not just the simulcast feed, live worship bands in every room. So we're worshiping and singing, and then we're energizing and equipping them to share the gospel. We give them a 2-hour lunch break where they go out and share the gospel, grab some lunch, collect canned food, then they come back. We share testimonies, and then we have a nationwide prayer service that's happening simultaneously where we're all calling out to God for revival in our nation and in our schools.
We are now in a technological age where everybody all over the place can come together and get trained like this at one time and do this all together.
We are shocked on how exciting and how well it's working, and the kingdom of God is forcefully advancing. I believe our best days for youth ministry are ahead. I believe God's going to unleash a revival in this nation and around the world, and he's going to choose to use the foolish things of the world to confound the wise, and there's nothing more foolish than an American teenager. So I just believe revival is going to unleash.
Okay, thank you so much, Greg Steer with Dare to Share. We appreciate it. Again, everybody, that's October 13th. God bless you, Greg.
Thank you.
Well, we've shown you some devastating images from Hurricane Michael, but take a look at this positive one from the Leon County Sheriff's Office. It is of deputies stopping to pray before braving Michael to go out and help the people in its path. The Sheriff's Office posted the photo, also asking for prayers for their safety. It was shared more than 6,000 times. And take a look at these little kitties. ABC News reporter Rob Marciano actually helped rescue them from a home destroyed by Michael. He was talking with a couple about their survival story, and they found the kittens, which fell from the roof of the home. Marciano says the owners didn't even know the kittens were there. And that is all for the time we have for today. We hope that you'll join us next time. Have a great day.